are, the Viking Metal Show, with our Mead master, Mr. CJ. This is our, how you doing, CJ?
Yo,
nice to meet
up?
you, man.
How are you guys?
Ray Wolf.
Hey there.
And so, you're going to take us upstairs and show us how to make mead today, huh?
Yeah, give me fucking 30 seconds. Let me smoke my cigarette.
Oh,
I don't want to smoke a cigarette
right,
on camera
what the
for
hell?
all the fucking
And we're here, where are we now? We're in Nutley? Well, tell us a little bit about Nutley.
Huh.
What's this fucking town about? Man?
All right.
You know any history behind it?
Not too much, but reportedly my building is haunted, I suppose.
Man, that building right over here?
Yeah, this is the Chestnut Cafe.
Chestnut
Paranormal
Cafe?
investigation and mead making at the same
Why
time. This is
not?
my kind of place.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, you know, it's a cool building. It's the Chestnut Cafe. I live above it. And they have excellent coffee there, excellent pastries and food. They make killer omelets.
And you have mead.
We will have mead. We don't have it yet. We just have mead fixins.
Now, when will this be ready? Around springtime?
We're talking maybe 2, possibly 3 months. So yeah, it'll be done. Right now it's middle of
April.
January,
So
so
with any
we're
luck, we
calling
might be in for the
March,
solar time.
April, something like that. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, well, let's head inside, man.
All right, sounds cool. Let's do it. We're gonna make some mead today. It's an original recipe, nothing traditional about it, but this is how you can do mead at home. It's very similar to the way you make wine, if anybody has some winemaking experience. If not, we're gonna take you through that too. So essentially with mead, it's the exact same thing as wine, except for instead of sugar, we're gonna use honey. So we're gonna make 5 gallons of mead, and we're gonna use about 14 pounds of honey, and as much of our chosen juice as we can find. When you're making wine or you're making mead, you don't need to use grapes. You don't have to have a vineyard if you want to make wine. You can go to the store and find your favorite juice. You want to use Kool-Aid, go right ahead, I guess. But I like making stuff that actually has some substance to it. So this is the best kind of juice that I can find. It's called Northland, the power of dark fruit. All right, so
I like that.
this is my favorite brand to use to make wine, and we're going to use this also to make mead. We're going to make a blackberry mead, but it's going to have a little bit of cranberry in it. Blackberry is actually really hard to source, so we're doing a little bit of improvisation here, and we're going to show you how we're going to do that. But essentially, this is how this is going to work. You take your juice and your honey, and you want to melt your honey down so it gets liquidy. It's a little thick right now. We're going to melt this down so it warms up a little bit, and we're going to start making a pre-batch of honey and some of this juice together. We're going to warm it up, and we're going to add a little bit of extra sugar into it. We're going to use some brown sugar because I feel like it. This is my original recipe, so this is the way I'm going to do it.
Excellent.
And we're also going to use a little bit of oak chips because I feel like it, because I think that it's just going to round out the taste a little bit. All right, and we're going to explain the process on how to use wood chips in your batches. This is also a yeast energizer and a yeast nutrient. This helps speed the batches up a little bit. And usually if you were to make mead, because it's such a thick and sticky sugar, it would take a really long time to make your batches of mead. We're going to show you how to speed that batch up. So instead of maybe taking 6 months to make a really ass-kicking batch of mead or wine, you can cut it down to about 2 months, 3 months, and then we'll show you how to treat your wine after that when it's ready to start bottling.
Right. So, what do we need? Oh, is there any other ingredients? I see you have jelly there. Is that what is that?
Like I said, it's hard to source blackberries. So what we're actually going to be doing is we're going to be taking some of this. This is just real, natural blackberry jam. And we're going to throw this in the sauce pot with the rest of our ingredients, and we're going to melt it down into everything else. It's going to be the exact same thing. And it has a little bit of natural sugar in it anyway. More sugar, more yeast, more alcohol. So if you want to make something that's ass-kicking, that's how you do it. Alright, so what we're going to do with the honey is, because honey is pretty thick as molasses, to make it pour out of the bottles a little bit easier, we're going to heat it up. So I'm going to use hot water. We're going to fill my sink up, and we're going to let all the honey in here kind of come up to a temperature that'll make it a little bit easier to pour. This is a variety of different kinds of honey. Honey is actually pretty expensive, isn't it? So everything, all these ingredients are relatively okay to source. It's easy to put together. You will sink about 80 bucks into all of this to be able to make your mead. But it's going to be well worth it. And between you and me and what about Bob, you can always, sell a couple of bottles to your friends if you want. Maybe
Was this about bodies?
You can always sell a couple of bottles to your friends and make a little bit of your money back. Or you guys can go all in on it.
So bootlegging is it, eh?
It is kind of like bootlegging, yeah. Except this is a little bit more legal. Alright, so now it's going to be time for the very important process of sterilizing your equipment. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some hot boiling water, we're going to pour it in this, and we're going to shake it around, we're going to smell it, we're going to make sure that everything is nice with this before we start putting our mead in here. We're going to take 8 cups of from my electric boiler, and we're going to pour it in here. We're going to add this to our already softening batch of honey. We're letting our honey sit, that way it pours out of these containers a lot easier. We are going to juice real blackberries to add this into our mead mix, and we're going to get started on that in a little bit. Right now what we're going to do though is we're going to take our saucepan over here in our kitchen, and we're going to dissolve our brown sugar and our real blackberry jam, and we're going to just melt it all down into the pot and get it to a liquid consistency. Then we can add this to everything else. I don't have a bigger pot, okay. So we're going to repeat this process a few times, but that's fine. Mm-hmm. So this is all the stuff that you can do right in your own home.
And how much brown sugar is that?
This is 2 pounds of brown sugar.
Okay.
Doing it purely for taste, and it'll help with a little bit of the sweetness. Ordinarily, what you would do with wine is you would take about 2 cups of sugar to every gallon of wine that you would want to make, and you would repeat this process, melting the sugar down and making a simple syrup. That way the yeast has an easier time eating the sugar. This is real blackberry jelly.
Okay.
Do it under a low flame. Alright, so make sure that you stir this while you're doing this, that way it doesn't burn. You don't want to burn your pan, and it's possible to burn your jelly, so you don't want to necessarily do that either. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of our juice to get this into a little bit more of a liquid consistency to give the sugar something to dissolve into. That's about right. Alright, so now we're going to add the sugar with the big knife. We've got to cut this open. We're going to just cut the tip off. Like that.
Like a Viking?
Yeah. So we're going to add in our brown sugar.
How much is that?
All of it. This is 2 pounds.
2 pounds of brown sugar.
Once again, this is not a traditional Viking mead recipe or anything. This is just something that I think sounds good. So this is an original recipe for blackberry mead. And we're going to just dissolve the sugar in with everything else. This is otherwise what's known as a musk. This is a premix that you put together before you start adding the rest of your ingredients in.
It's starting to smell nice.
I know, right? Alright, so like I said before, I want to throw in a little bit of oak chips to help kind of round out the flavor. This is a typical process what people will do when they'll make wine and such like that. So you can find this at local brew shops, or you can go on docshomebrew.com in Binghamton, New York to get all of your brewing supplies. That's where I got this from.
Where was that?
Doc's Homebrew in Binghamton, New York. So what we're going to do is, when you're using wood chips, oak chips, you put it in a bowl like this, and you throw some water in. You can do this right out of the tap. This is fine if you want, as long as your water is good. And you want to let this soak. So you're going to let this soak for about 20 minutes. And the purposes of letting this soak is you don't want to just add it right into your mix. You let them soak so the wood chips pick up the water, and it won't absorb the juices. You actually want the natural oils inside of the wood chips to go out into your batch. And so the water basically creates a membrane barrier that'll allow it to do that. So let this stuff soak for about 20 minutes.
Is it necessary to have tribal Viking music while doing this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Traditional.
All right.
In other words, the mead will not turn out correct if not playing.
That's right.
All right. What's the next process after this?
I stir.
Oh, stirring.
Pour it in and repeat.
Lots of stirring and repeating stirring.
Take your sword. Take your sword. Take your sword. We're going to take all these blackberries. I got some real blackberries here. And we're going to open all this stuff up, and we're going to put it in our juicer. Because I have a juicer. They're great to have. You want to be healthy? Get a juicer. We're going to juice the blackberries, and we're going to throw that into the rest of everything else.
Okay, if you don't have a juicer, do you have to lay them in a big pot and dance on them, or anything like the old school way?
I don't know how to juice without a juicer. Blackberries.
Very good. Okay, so let's juice the blackberries. Juice in the berries.
This isn't ordinarily how I prefer to have my berries juiced. I'll have a funnel. So we took a bottle and we cut the ass end off the bottle, and then we shoved the nose in the bottle like this. Okay, so we've taken our jelly and our brown sugar and some of the juice. We melted everything down in this pot. I poured it in here to make it pouring into our vat a little bit easier. So that's what we're going to do right now. It was important to do this, that way we can get all that brown sugar to dissolve. We're making a simple syrup here.
It's excellent. Now, if I could just get on these drums, but we're short of drumsticks. Where's the cat? I'll use the cat. So, what would you say to do all this cost? What would be a
Well, if you're going to
Said
make
about
a
$80.
if you're going to do a 5-gallon batch like this, or really a 4-gallon batch, because you're going to leave about a gallon of headspace in this to account for the pressure inside of the bottle. Honey is not cheap. You're going to buy 5 or 6 bottles of honey. This is a 3-pound bottle of honey. This was like $8 at ShopRite.
yeah,
Honey's not
expensive.
cheap. All right, so you're going to need about 14 pounds of honey.
And how many of those containers makes 14 pounds?
I don't know, 5 or 6.
5 or
some of
6?
these are 2 pounds a piece, and some of these are 3 pounds a piece.
Okay.
And what type of honey are you using?
We're using a variety of different kinds of honey. We're using golden blossom honey, which actually has its own blend of honey. And then this is also raw, unfiltered honey. At least it says it is. Honey is one of those things. Shout out to the bees. Bees are actually very important. We know that there's a bee crisis, and anybody out there that has ever been interested in keeping bees, you'll be in need if you keep
You'll be
bees.
in need. Get it? Shh. All right.
While I'm doing this, I want to talk a little bit more about how important bees are. We know that bees pollinate all of our fruits and our vegetables, and with a bee shortage, how long do you think that it would be for the prices of our fruits and vegetables to start going up? And we've seen that anyway. They just call it inflation. But more importantly, with no bees, there's no food. And if there's no food, then you have massive starvations. You don't want that, obviously. There's about 12 billion people on the planet. And if there's a bee shortage, you are going to run out of seeds. Unless some corporation decides to sell you seeds. And then you're getting into our whole GMO conflict. Some people might like GMO stuff, some people might not. Monsanto, how about this? Well, the thing is that bees are really important. No bees, no food, you die. Keep your bees. Keep your bees happy. And like I said, you keep bees, they'll keep you in honey. So at the process that we're in right now, we've taken all of our berries and our juices and stuff. We've melted our stuff down. We've added the honey into the vat here. Now it's time to add some yeast, and then we're going to top it off with some more juice on top. All right. Right now we have 2 different kinds of brewer's yeast. This is a Red Star Montrachet. This is great for like a red wine, and then this is something called a Bourgivine RC212. Yeast has funny names. But this particular yeast is really good for retaining flavors, berries, honey flavor. Okay, so we're going to add this right into our vat right here. Each one of these is good for 5 gallons each. We're going to go half and half on this because I want to blend the yeasts together. Don't cut yourself.
Extra flavoring though.
Yeah. Start drinking some blood.
Well, there's nothing wrong with a little blood in the mead. I'd say give it a little bit of a tang. Okay, adding the yeast.
Okay, this is yeast nutrient. Because we're dealing with honey, we want to make this go a little bit faster. Honey ferments slow. This will speed up the process, and we're going to call it about 2 months instead of 4 to 6 months. So each one of these, each 1 teaspoon is good for a gallon. We're going to go with, we're going to call this 4 gallons. So we're going to go with 4 teaspoons of this. This is a yeast energizer. This is also good for the honey. This speeds the process up. This is a half a teaspoon per gallon, times 4.
Okay, let's put in the, what's that, the teaspoon? 1 tablespoon or teaspoon?
This is it's a teaspoon.
Okay, now what's this one called?
This is the yeast energizer.
And this is?
This is the yeast nutrient. This is basically steroids for yeast.
How much a gallon?
That's 1 teaspoon per gallon. That'll be enough. All of this isn't exact science.
Didn't look like you put 4 teaspoons.
fine.
You did?
Fine.
Okay.
All of this is not an exact science,
Right.
so it's okay to ad lib a little bit here and there.
Right.
The general process is the same.
Okay, so what happens after this?
Well, we have yeast sitting on the top, and we have our yeast nutrients and stuff sitting on the top. So we're going to keep adding juice over it.
Okay. So this would be how many bottles of juice on top of the berries and the jelly that you used?
As much as we can get in it to
Okay.
kind of
I see.
fill out the rest of the top of the bottle. I'm trying to aim for the yeast specifically.
Right, but like you said, you don't want to go to the top. You want to go, what, 3/4 of the way or a little more?
We're going to go to about right here.
Okay. And now you're adding a...
This is my wild card. Because this is a blackberry dominant batch, I want to add a little bit of black cherry into this. This is a black cherry and a Concord grape juice, and we're going to add this. That's good.
Wow. And that's about how high you go, right?
That's about how high we go.
All right.
Now what we're going to do is start throwing some of these wood chips in.
Ah, the wood chips.
Forgot about this almost.
The final seasoning of the mead. From the Mead Master.
Now we wet the wood chips. That way it releases its own oils inside of the wood. If we didn't soak them, it wouldn't release its own oils. It would just absorb the juice instead. And we don't want that.
How do you know how much wood chips to put in? You just kind of...
Ad lib. I'm just throwing a few handfuls.
Okay. A few handfuls.
Don't worry about making a mess. Okay, so now we have all of our mixture together, and this is about ready to get finished up. But I want to stir it up. I don't have anything to stir it with, so we got to ad lib. Lots of ad lib in here. So I got an idea.
You got something
Here,
inside?
Follow me. Come here. Let's try this.
Oh, you got a drumstick.
We're gonna take apart this hi-hat, and we're gonna take the stem out of the hi-hat, and we're gonna stir it up.
Okay. But who knows where that hi-hat's
Oh, we're
stem
gonna
has
clean
been.
it.
Extra flavor, man. Come on. Seasonings.
So, when you don't have a stirrer, what you're saying is just use the stem of a hi-hat stand. Don't lose the pieces. We need to put that back together. Okay, so there you have it.
All right, so we're gonna use this.
Excellent.
Now this isn't ideal, but we are gonna rinse it off real quick.
Now that's what you call ad-libbing. Does it work? It works. Wait, at least least you could play some kind of beat to it. There you go. Ah.
You're going to want to stir it up a little bit anyway, because you want to get it all in there. Everything's got to dissolve a little bit. The elements inside of the bottle are going to start sinking down to the bottom, and that's fine. You're going to want that. So now we are about ready to put.
It looks like a beautiful colored meat.
Just stay like that for about 3 months.
Yeah.
All right, so we add a little bit of water into our airlock. That's all you need. What'll happen is that this is just going to bubble up, and when it's done bubbling, it's done. And that's going to be called a racking process after that, which is what I'm going to get into in a second. So we're going to cap this, and we're going to let it sit. It doesn't have to be anywhere specific, but I will tell you that the warmer environment, the quicker the yeast will work. All right, so you can throw this in your closet, check on it every now and then, but you don't have to watch it all the time. This is our awesome cat Zoroaster. He is my favorite pussy.
Cat.
So, alright, so this is basically done. But the most important thing I can tell you at this stage is that in about 3 days, this is all going to start working. You want to watch how ready it works, because it may just start bubbling, and you don't want to bubble it too much because all of this foam will start coming out the top. The interesting thing about this particular cork is that it has its own kind of bowl in here, so anything that does come out of here will wind up in here. Now, my first couple of days, when I start seeing this happen, I'll leave this right off. I'll put something over it, like a cheesecloth or something like that, because it's going to off-gas too much for this bleeder. So, we'll get this in here, and now you can let it sit. Now let's talk about the racking process. When this is done, what you'll have to do is you're going to pour this out into another one of these. You're going to have about 3 inches of sludge at the bottom of this. When you pour it out, leave the sludge in. Alright? All of that is sediment that's settled to the bottom. You don't want to drink it. It'll make you throw up. You good? Okay. So you leave the sludge in the bottom of this, and you have another one of these, and you'll pour it into the other one, and then you'll take that and you'll let that sit for about a week. All of the new sediment that's still left in the mixture is going to resettle into the bottom of the new bottle. Alright? And then afterwards, you let that settle, you pour that back into the other bottle, and you let it settle. And you do it back and forth until it's actually clear. You can tell, because there's not going to be any sediment at the bottom of the bottle eventually. When you have that stage, when it's done, then you can start bottling it. Now, you can bottle it with any wine bottle that it either has a twist off, or you can use corks. You're going to have to get a corker to be able to shove the cork in the bottle. After that, you throw it in the fridge. You're going to have to let it settle. Afterwards, you put it in the fridge, and you take it out, and at that point, it's about ready to drink. I would let it set in the bottles itself for another couple of weeks even. It's a secondary fermentation stage. You want to keep it under refrigeration because you don't want pressure to build up in the bottles. It's actually very easy to have exploding bottles at that stage. You don't want that to happen. Alright? Once it's passed that test, it's ready to drink.